Today we'll discuss the movie Jumper, 2008. Imagine possessing an extraordinary ability, teleportation. You can appear anywhere on Earth in a fraction of a second, bypassing obstacles, restrictions, and borders. It seems like a dream, the freedom to travel and live without limits. But what if such power turns out to be not only a gift, but also a curse? Jumper tells the story of David Rice, a teenager who discovers this unique ability after a chance fall into a river. Gifted with such an unusual power, he flees his home and starts living a life most can only dream of. Endless travel, a luxurious lifestyle, and complete disregard for boundaries become his reality. However, with this freedom comes a hidden danger. This film is more than just an action-packed story about teleportation. It's about the struggle to balance power and humanity. How would you act if one day you could transcend all boundaries? David Rice, the protagonist of Jumper, 2008, is an ordinary teenager from the small town of Ann Arbor, Michigan. His life has been difficult from the start. His mother abandoned the family when he was a child, and his father became harsh and cold. Constant bullying from peers and loneliness make David withdrawn, longing for an escape from reality. One day, after falling into a frozen river, he accidentally discovers his ability to teleport. This becomes a turning point in his life. David uses his newfound power to escape his hometown and start the life he has always dreamed of. Moving to New York, he begins to explore his capabilities, transporting himself to the most incredible places. However, his motivations soon extend beyond simple pleasure. He starts using his powers to enrich himself by robbing bank vaults. Over time, David's motivation shifts. What began as a quest for freedom and independence becomes a fight for survival, when a mysterious organization, the Paladins, begins hunting him. Led by Roland, who harbors a deep hatred for people like David, the Paladins force the protagonist to reconsider how he uses his powers, not just for himself but also to protect those he loves. David's reunion with Millie, his high school love, rekindles old feelings. Her presence becomes his anchor, motivating him to fight not just for his own life, but for their shared future. David is a character whose story demonstrates how power and responsibility intertwine, and how freedom often comes with new challenges. End of Section 5. David Rice's world is torn between mundane reality and the incredible opportunities his teleportation ability provides. On the one hand, there's the familiar setting of Ann Arbor, a small town where he grew up, surrounded by gray routines, bullying, and a lack of familiar warmth. On the other hand, David creates a unique world for himself, full of vibrant locations, from dusty deserts to magnificent cities, where he can appear instantly. However, his newfound freedom is shadowed by the threat posed by the Paladins, a secret organization dedicated to eradicating people like him. Their leader Roland plays a pivotal role in building tension throughout the story. Roland is a ruthless and methodical man, equipped with technology that disrupts David's teleportation ability. He views jumpers as anomalies that threaten humanity's balance, and is determined to wipe them out. Another key character is Griffin O'Connor, an experienced jumper who has been evading the Paladins for years. Griffin is a stark contrast to David, cynical, armed, and willing to kill to protect himself. His knowledge of the Paladins and survival skills become a valuable resource for David, but their collaboration is fraught with serious disagreements, as Griffin is driven by a thirst for revenge. Millie, David's high school love, also plays a significant role, serving as a bridge between his past and present. She symbolizes the part of life David wants to return to, despite the chaos surrounding him. However, her presence also makes her a target for the Paladins, forcing David to reconsider his priorities and decisions. David Rice's life takes a dramatic turn when his powers are no longer a secret. What began as a path to freedom and an easy life turns into a constant struggle for survival. The Paladins, led by the relentless Roland, hunt David using advanced technology that neutralizes his teleportation abilities. This conflict forces the protagonist to confront the consequences of his reckless use of power. David Rice's life turns into a constant destruction when a heavily armed invader rips everything apart. At the heart of the conflict lies David's struggle with two opposing forces: his desire to live a life of complete freedom and the need to protect those he loves. Millie, a girl from his past, re-enters his life, but their relationship faces severe trials when she learns about his abilities. Their joint journey to Rome leads to catastrophic consequences when the Paladins ambush David, threatening not only him, but also Millie. The situation intensifies when David meets Griffin, a jumper who has been waging his own war against the Paladins for years. Griffin tries to teach David essential survival rules, but their perspectives on the fight differ greatly. Griffin acts aggressively and doesn't hesitate to kill, while David seeks a path that avoids casualties. Their ideological clash adds another layer of tension to the story. In this struggle, David must not only defend himself but also make difficult choices. He realizes that his powers have limits, and that the consequences of his actions affect not only him, but everyone around him. This stage of the story highlights the protagonist's journey from a carefree approach to his abilities, to a deeper understanding of their responsibility and dangers. The climax reaches its peak when David, striving to rescue Millie from the Paladins, confronts the truth about his powers and their consequences. Millie's abduction becomes his breaking point, not just a personal trial, but a moment of realization that he can no longer run from his past and must take responsibility for his actions. As David and Griffin plan a rescue mission, their paths begin to diverge. Griffin, driven by a thirst for revenge, is willing to go to extreme lengths without regard for collateral damage. His plan, to blow up Millie along with the Paladins to crush their ambitions once and for all, is unacceptable to David. He realizes that Griffin's brutality is no different from the cruelty of the Paladins. This internal conflict between the two jumpers reflects David's struggle with himself. What kind of person does he want to be? When Griffin attempts to execute his plan, David is forced to stop him. Their confrontation turns into a chaotic battle, spanning a variety of locations across the globe. They leap to snow-covered peaks, ravaged battlefields, and even the heart of a bustling metropolis. Ultimately, David manages to neutralize Griffin, trapping him in a web of high-voltage wires that block his ability to jump. Despite his anger, David chooses not to kill Griffin, showing that he won't succumb to darkness. Left on his own, David summons all his strength and heads to confront the Paladins. Using everything he's learned, he stages a massive fight, pushing his abilities to a new level. He teleports with Millie and an entire apartment into a river, leaving the Paladins stunned by the extent of his power. His showdown with Roland becomes a moment of truth. Instead of killing the Paladins' leader, David teleports him to the desolate Grand Canyon, leaving him stranded. This decision signifies not only David's moral growth, but also his understanding that violence isn't always the answer. After all the trials, David finally realizes that his power is both a gift and a curse. He finds Millie and leaves the dangerous world behind, hoping to start fresh. Yet, his heart remains heavy. Can he truly leave the past behind? After the intense confrontation, David comes to terms with the fact that his abilities, while offering immense freedom, carry a heavy responsibility. The consequences of his decisions affect not only him, but also the people he loves. His battle with the Paladins and his choice not to kill Roland become turning points, forcing him to rethink how he uses his powers. Returning with Millie to the familiar world, David faces a new reality. His actions have left their mark, not only on his life but also on the lives of others. Griffin, trapped because of their conflict, and Millie, who endured kidnapping and danger, are just some of those impacted by David's powers. Meanwhile, his decision to spare Roland raises internal doubts. Was it right to show mercy to a man who embodies cruelty and fanaticism? David and Millie's relationship gradually heals. She sees that David has changed. He is no longer the teenager who used his abilities for fun and to escape reality. He has become a mature man, ready to take responsibility for his actions. Despite her trauma and fears, Millie chooses to stand by him because she sees a person behind the incredible power, a person who genuinely seeks to protect her and build a new life. David also tries to reconnect with his mother despite her ties to the Paladins. Their meeting is filled with complex emotions, pain over lost years, misunderstanding, but also hope for reconciliation. Mary, who spent years trying to protect David by hiding him from her colleagues, shows that even within an enemy, there can be love and a desire to protect. The seemingly unsolvable conflict concludes with the realization that the past cannot be changed, but it can be accepted. David and Millie choose not to return to their previous life of luxury and reckless use of power. Instead, they embark on a journey toward a modest but conscious life, understanding that true freedom is not the ability to escape problems, but the ability to confront them. For David, this stage is not the end of the story but the beginning of a new path. He understands that his abilities are not just a gift but a tool for something greater. Perhaps, in the future, he will find a way to use them not for personal gain, but to help others. What would you do if you had the power to jump anywhere on Earth? Would you leave everything behind to live without limits? Or could you resist the temptation to use this power for personal gain? What's more important, to be free from rules and responsibility, or to learn how to use your abilities for the greater good? Mnet calls Henya. Henya calls for Jula, a female student at Waste, enters her home school in ruins. Could you bear the burden of a power that could affect the lives of those closest to you? And what choice would you make, if faced with a dilemma? Fighting for good at great personal risk, or staying in the shadows, preserving your freedom, but leaving the world in danger? Are there boundaries that should never be crossed, even with absolute power? And what does it mean to be truly free? Share your thoughts. Where do we draw the line between taking responsibility for our actions and striving for personal freedom?